So I wanted to talk about Manchester City. I want to talk about their bad run of form and whether they're out of the title race, because it's not, I don't think it's exaggerating to say that there's a potential for them to be out of the title race already, really. And you know, you look at their results recently, one win in just 11 games is absolutely diabolical by their standards. They are normally relentless winning machines in every single competition. This is the worst defense of a title by a Pep Guardiola Manchester City side ever, really. You know, I can't think of a time when they've had a run of bad form this bad. I mean, you think about bad title defenses before, you think about Liverpool in 2020-21 when they lost a bunch of home games in a row. That was during the pandemic. There was no home crowds. I feel like that factored into a little bit. But Man City just completely have lost confidence, really. And I think, honestly, they're out of the title race now. And I don't think like that should be a bold statement to say, really. I mean, like I said, one win in 11 games. They are out of the EFL Cup. They are precarious in the Champions League. Let's just give a quick mention to the Champions League before going to the Premier League too much. But they've got 2 games remaining. They're currently at the bottom end of the playoffs, as it were. So if you finish between 9th and 24th in the Champions League phase, you go into the playoffs to try and get through to the round of 16. Man City currently are at the bottom of that. Even if they win their final 2 games, I don't think that'll be enough for them to get through to the round of 16 automatically, which after 3-4 games in the Champions League, they were looking good to be able to do that. I think, didn't they win there? They won 2 of the 3 opening matches in 1 draw and 2 victories in the 3 opening games, and since then, they've lost a bunch of them. They've just looked absolutely toothless. You know, they were the better side in a sense against Juventus in terms of having more chances and more of the ball, but they didn't do anything with it. They were absolutely toothless, and for a team that's got Erling Haaland up top, it's almost impressive to be toothless. Like, how do you manage that? And in the Champions League as well, it gets quite worrying for them because, yes, their final game in the Champions League is a home game against Club Brugge from Belgium. You'd expect them to win that, but then again, they were 3-0 up against Feyenoord and slipped to make that a draw. So that is not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. And that's a Club Brugge side that beat Aston Villa, the only side to beat Aston Villa so far in the league phase of the Champions League. So they're no mugs. They'll be battling for one of those playoff spots as well, as will PSG, their penultimate opponent on the 22nd of January. That is going to be a really tough game for them. Away to Paris. I mean, yeah, PSG are really struggling as well. They're outside of the playoffs, but they've got home advantage. So what's that going to be like? Are they going to lose again, Man City? Maybe. I mean, and out of all these games, I mean, there's been some shockers for sure. There's been some absolutely shocking results in this current run for sure. But I think in a sense, the loss at home against Manchester United might be the worst of the lot. Now, credit to Manchester United. I'll give them the dues for this one because they absolutely deserved it in the end. They fought so hard to get back into that game, and the late show from them, a pair of goals, a penalty from Fernandes and Amad Diallo. I mean, he won the penalty for Fernandes, but he also scored a goal of his own, which, yeah, like I've said, was a bit of a speculative effort, you know, but you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. It was an excellent effort from such a difficult position, but you know, Man United shouldn't be able to come back into that. You know, it's almost a role reversal. That is the Man United. That is not the Man United side that we've been used to seeing for the last 10 years. That is a Man United side that just, you know, you almost Man City were the Man United what they normally are, if that makes sense. They kind of switch reversals with that. You know, Man City normally a team that always pushes in the final stages of every game to try and get something out of it. And we've seen that fighting spirit at times. We've seen it with some really late goals, particularly against Arsenal when they were losing. They drew, what was it, in the 98th minute with John Stones firing in the goal. That's the Man City we maybe not know and love, but we know and very well are acquainted with over the last 10 years or so of Pep Guardiola. But this run has just been absolutely shocking. And if you look at the Premier League table, right? You look at the Premier League table. They're down in 5th. Right? They played 16 matches. They are currently 9 points behind Liverpool. Liverpool have a game in hand, you know, away against Everton, which they'll win because Everton are not very good. But, you know, when they win that game, that is effectively a 12-point gap. And honestly, with the form that they're in at the moment, I can't see them catching Liverpool. I can't. I'm not saying it's a done deal in terms of the title battle. I'm going to get onto Chelsea in a separate video that will, depending on the platform, will be out at the same time as this one, or maybe slightly later, going into whether they're championship contenders, even though Enzo Maresca says they're not. But Man City, for me, they're out of the title race. They are out of the title race. They've lost the confidence. Teams maybe have found them out a little bit, but I think I think they've more struggled themselves more than teams finding them out. They've just been absolutely toothless recently. Like I said, 1 win in 11 games in all competitions. What is it in the Premier League? How many? It's 1 victory against Nottingham Forest, who are doing very well. Weirdly, they managed to beat Forest at home, which was no easy feat for many sides. I mean, they beat Liverpool earlier in the season, of course, didn't they? But you look at Man City's runners of games. Like they drew against Crystal Palace, they beat Manchester City, lost against Man United, lost against Liverpool, lost at home against Spurs, 2-1 loss against Brighton, 2-1 loss against Bournemouth. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches in the Premier League, and they've won 1 of them. And admittedly, that win was actually a pretty good one, but it's not good enough. And I feel like Man City now, they're out of the title race. They've lost their belief. To lose at home 2-1 after being ahead. I mean, when was that Fernandes penalty? That was about 85 minutes, wasn't it? 88 minutes. You're leading 1-0 at home in your local derby with 2 minutes to go plus added on time. 2 minutes later, you're 2-1 down. That is absolutely criminal from Man City. It really is. And we've seen cracks showing really when it comes to Pep Guardiola literally trying to put some cracks in his face when he was scratching himself in the Champions League. Kyle Walker resulting in one of the dumbest bit of feigning injury I've ever seen in a football game. This is from Kyle Walker. I love Walker. He comes from the academy of the team that I support at the end of the day. I've always had a bit of affiliation to the guy, but my God, he embarrassed himself in that match. He really did. But they're having to do things like this to try and win. And at least in their mind, in their belief, is that they have to do things like this, whether consciously or subconsciously. Clearly that's coming into their thinking. And it didn't used to be like that. Not on that level. Every team does a bit of, bit of play acting, bit of diving. It's just part of the game nowadays. But seeing Kyle Walker do something like that, I think that speaks volumes about this. But yeah, for me, guys, honestly, Man City, they're done. They're out of the title race, and they're going to have a job on to be able to progress in the Champions League and also get into the Champions League for next season as well. Because right now they're not in the top 4. They're behind Forest. I expect them to catch them by all means, but yeah, we are in for a real seismic shift in English football, I think. And I wouldn't rule out as well Pep Guardiola leaving after the season. If he can't turn it around, he'll walk. He'll walk. He doesn't owe that club anything. He's won everything with them. And he won in the Champions League. Winning the Champions League was what Manchester City wanted. When they hired Pep Guardiola, they'd won everything up until that point already, at least a couple of times. But to become the dominant force in English football in the 2020s, or at least the first part of it, in the latter half of the 2010s, and win the Champions League, that is what he was hired to do. So he'll leave as an absolute legend of not only Manchester City, but of English football as well. One of the greatest managers of all time, without a doubt. But even the greats have their time. And right now, I feel like Man City, with Pep Guardiola, this could well be his last season. And by default, from what he said, it'll be his final club job, really. He's not going to manage another club in football, but he might go and manage national teams. But guys, what do you think? Are Man City out of the title race? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below as always. And of course, keep it tuned to thefootballchronicle.com to see much more content on the world of football just like this. Have a good one, guys. See you soon.